world? Thank you for joining us once again. Raise the Bar podcast. I am Bryce Spencer, 1/3. We just wanted to come speak with you this morning, March 3rd, 2023. Want to touch upon a topic just of staying sharp, staying ready, prepared in the climate of, the unknown with these layoffs, these cuts. See a lot of trends of, unfortunate individuals losing their jobs, and each of us want to, share our experiences, our thoughts of what that looks like, what some of our personal experiences of what we have went through and experienced ourselves, and how, we use these skills and insight that we have to stay prepared and ready for our next opportunity. Things do happen and we are ready to roll with it. I'll roll it to you, my brother Rick.
Good morning, world. Another third of the Raise the Bar podcast, Ricky Spencer. And here also to engage in this quality conversation, just kind of create the foundation and the fundamentals of how to stay prepared throughout the transition of the job movement, even life in general, just being able to level up, continue to challenge ourselves, set goals, accomplish those goals, but most importantly, have a foundation and follow through on that foundation and hold yourself accountable. So, you just want to speak on those high value qualities and be able to keep ourselves motivated, but more importantly, keep you guys motivated as well as we all take this journey. And now I'd like to pass it over to my brother and let him introduce himself.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. Roy Spencer here. And excited to connect with my brothers today and just share some of our thoughts on staying sharp and, keeping yourself in demand when, challenging times are transpiring. As for like right now, it's not the first kind of, economic setbacks, I would say, that have occurred over the time, but a lot of folks may just be getting their careers started or, maybe getting ready to graduate trade school or high school, college, whatever it may be, and prepare to enter this workforce. So we really just want to share some of our experiences, some stories that we've heard, some statistics, of course, and keep the conversation going. So feel free to drop a comment, reach out to us if you have any questions or experiences that you want to share. And we'll go ahead and get things kicked off. I'll throw it back over to you, Bryce.
Yes. So like we said, we just wanted to touch upon, today's, like you see the cuts, the news, Apple News always letting me know which new tech company has made a cut and, 10,000 people losing jobs. And I can just imagine what that feels like to wake up and get that email or call from your HR or your manager that your services are no longer needed. And me personally, I think preparation for that, because you just never know when that can occur. We get these jobs and or I'll speak for myself, get comfortable, complacent, think the company loves you, think you begin to believe that you are irreplaceable, or that your job is in such high demand because it's what you do, not realizing the landscape changes, job duties and requirements change and shift, and your job can be someone else's job. They feel like, hey, your task can just be a part of someone else's task, and that's when they start skimming the extra fat off. I think because most companies, they took on so much during the pandemic, they created a lot of new roles in this virtual work environment, this hybrid work environment. Now that we're kind of post-pandemic, the roles and people, starting to roll back into the office, they don't see some necessaries for these roles now. So you're seeing some random cuts. And what I would like to touch about is just making sure you research new requirements, look up job requirements and roles. Study and take LinkedIn Learning. I think that's a very useful tool to. It's actually like fun to me. Like I know I wasn't the most enthused and interactive in school and in college and whatnot, but now that as an adult and I see the plethora of so many courses and classes that you can take, I feel like it's like going to a candy store to see what new learning skill that you can take and certification you can acquire just by taking these classes. We have so much downtime. So long story short, I just want to say, man, the preparation and not procrastinating and not believing that you can be on that end of the spectrum is vital and important for us to just really understand and comprehend. What you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I'll touch on, I mean, something I think really important that you mentioned, how um, it's really unfortunate. Like, oftentimes you would think that the lowest performers are the ones getting let go. I mean, logically speaking, that would make sense to us workers, but I've talked to some of my peers that have, been a part of layoffs or, at companies that are going through these rounds of layoffs. And there's no like just obvious logic that's there. Like they are letting go of top performers, people in the middle, and people on the lower end. So it could be kind of scary to be honest. Especially when so
So
many
there's no
companies
real way
are
to anticipate.
yes, especially when so many companies are going through these rounds of layoffs. So like I have this graphical chart I'll show you guys. I was also looking at like the percentage of people who have $1,000 saved. So that's the first thing I would really suggest. Have an emergency fund because you don't know when it can happen. Like I said, there's not always logic there. Even though you're doing your job really well, it could happen to you. So 42% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings as of 2022. And if you live in the Bay Area, more than likely have rent that's $1,000 or more if you don't have like, a bunch of roommates. So that's the first step I really think is important because, you gotta have somewhere to live. You have to take care of your bills. But just looking at these graphical charts, I'll start with the one at the top. This is layoffs.fyi. So really just tracks layoffs since the pandemic started. So it goes all the way back to 2020. But as you see here, like these are the number of companies that have gone through layoffs, roughly like 268 in January, 170 in February, and already this month, 17 companies have gone through layoffs. And yeah, numbers of employees that have been laid off just in January alone, 85,000 employees were laid off. And this isn't the entire picture. This is the data that we were able to collect, or this website was able to collect. But if you look here, it also just shows like how many companies and employees for the entire quarter. So we're looking at in Q1 alone, 455 and over 120,000 employees. So I bring all this up. I mean, please feel free to check out this website, layoffs.fyi. And you can kind of see the breakdown for different, industries. Just it's across the board. It's not just tech. A lot of people were thinking, oh, this is just tech. No, it's retail companies, consumer companies, and plenty of others. And I think it's just important to have an understanding of what the current landscape is. And last thing I'll touch on before I, throw it over to you, Rick, network. It's not always what you know. You could be the sharpest, most intelligent engineer, lawyer, sales consultant, technical expert. But if you are in line to get into like let's say if you're in line to get into a company to interview, because that's basically what it is when you're going through their website career page, you submit your resume and then you have to, get in line behind everyone else who has already, unless your resume just jumps out, which it's really hard to with these technologies like these applicant tracking systems, where it's not even people looking at it at first. It's just an algorithm that's checking, make sure that you meet all the preliminary prerequisites. But from there, like you have to get in line behind all the other people applying for that same position. So if you're a stranger and they don't know you, they're going to treat you just like everyone else. But if you know someone who's at that company that you're applying to, and a peer of yours, a colleague, a friend, whatever it may be, if they share opportunity with you, then it's like, okay, if Bryce is willing to risk his reputation, he's been working at this company for years, then this probably says a lot about this person, that he is willing to put his name on the line. So that's why that network is so important. Like, I can't say that enough. But what are you thinking, Rick and Bryce?
I'm sorry, a real quick thing just made me think about like at the last event we held for Brothers Reaching Back, how you were drawing the tree and having the below surface things of why you're interested in doing what you're doing. And it just made me think about like if I was in a situation where I'm looking for employment and my friend or my brother puts me in a room where I can network. I was thinking I need to have that ready and have that handy to man, fire off the hip. And when you're having these conversations, a little off topic, but I don't know why, it just stuck out in my brain immediately. Like I envisioned myself in that particular situation in the room where I'm utilizing my resources, my networks. That becomes vital. You have to lean heavy on that when you're in, dealing with, this craziness of these cuts and, adversity. You got to be ready. You have to have these tools it's like a tool belt, man. You just got to use them.
Yep. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's on topic for sure. We referencing like the first principles of your interest areas, like something that you're trying to create, like a job opportunity. It's important to have a connection to it because people want to know, like, why are you interested in this? Like, tell me more. Like, okay, yeah, it's a cool job. It pays a lot, but of course, everyone's going to be interested in those two things. Like, tell me more about who you are and why you have a connection to this. And that's kind of the concept we went through breaking down for those of you listening. It's a first principles standpoint. And yeah, we broke that down at our last event for one of the young attendees, AJ. Shout out to AJ, young 13-year-old with dreams of being a chef one day. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That was a good example.
Interested to hear your thoughts, man. What's going on?
And I think just the dynamics of just paying attention to what's going on around you, recognizing things. I know early in my banking career at Wells Fargo, as I was transitioning from being a banker to a manager, they were implementing new tools and resources. It was kind of like, it felt like micromanaging, but really understanding the purpose of that tool and why they have it. And now when I go back that I'm no longer with Wells Fargo, you can got to see like some of the primary offices or main offices that were open that are no longer open. So they had something they implemented for us, which is interactions for the bankers. They always kept track of over-the-counter transactions for the tellers, but there's also the amount of interactions. So simply it was easy as the minute someone sits down in your seat as a banker, you need to do something to trigger their profile to show that you to make the system acknowledge that you have this individual in front of you. And now as they're doing all the layoffs, and I was looking at the graph that you showed, Royce, how that's impacted the number of people that are employed in the offices and also the branches that they've closed down. Because I was in San Francisco last week, I believe it was, and SF Main, which is one of the main branches of Wells Fargo, that was supposedly one of their busier branches, is no longer even open. Maybe something with the pandemic had something to do with that. There's no telling. But it just shows how those numbers are able to be used to justify the fact that they no longer need those bankers. It even still working in the banking environment. A lot of the branch offices, they don't have the number of bankers that they used to have back in the day, back in the early days. They've changed. I know Wells Fargo used to stay open until 6 o'clock on a Saturday, which was ridiculous. In the early days, they might have stayed open until 12, 1 o'clock, but until 6 o'clock, there was just no reason. But Wells Fargo was heavy in the market and they were really reputable and being recognized until the unfortunate news was shared. And they were open up we don't need to dig into that, but they had the bad news that was shared, so that kind of changed the dynamics and their footprint. But just recognizing that, and also as we were always saying, just staying aware of what's going on, tracking the Fed rate, and that's the Federal Reserve rate, the interest rate, and how that's impacting the loans. Because as the Fed rate starts to increase, that's the economy slowing the movement of money down. When the interest rates are very low, that means there's more money being moved around the economy. And when that rate is higher, that means they want to slow the movement of money. And then also it's really not that lucrative to keep your money in deposit accounts because the bank's losing money by you keeping money there. And that's something very key that I learned by working at a bank is that we're really not strategic in wanting to hold your money there because if you hold all your money there, we're cash heavy. The bank's objective is to lend that money out and make interest on it. So that was something very interesting, just being in banking for so long and understanding. But then it also teaches you to kind of stay on your toes, continue to adapt and learn, get these certifications that we mentioned, these different licenses, be able to articulate that. And that way, when the banking environment changes, the landscape of how they're operating, you still have something of value because you have the certifications. So now I could be my own business. Gotcha. It's just being mindful of that, becoming, just because your customers, they're consumer customers, but they're also small business customers as well. And for me, sitting in the seat, I had the opportunity to kind of observe. You need to be mindful of what you're doing. And I have front row seats to see what businesses are successful that are failing and what they're doing to fail. And just being mindful of that, taking notes. I was like, maybe later on down in my career and life, I might want to take advantage of this and being this type of business. Is just taking your mental notes. And just, like we always said, just being mindful of what you're doing and also continue to grow. Complacency was something I can never get comfortable with. And it was like when you get complacent, like our generations before us, I feel like they might have gotten a little complacent. And I can't say any judgment, but they had careers where they could be in a position for 20 plus years. And nowadays, like the next generation, like they might be committed for 6 months to a year, if that, but we're not really sticking around in these roles. But that's the nature of the environment that we live in. Everything's so fast paced. Like who you were tomorrow or who you are today might not necessarily keep you in that seat tomorrow. And being mindful of that, I need to be better than I was yesterday. Yeah, just keep pushing forward and just find that information and sharing it as well.
Yeah, you shared a lot right there that I want to unpack a little bit, like some really, really good points. For one, you mentioned how Wells Fargo had unfortunate news. I do want to make sure that people listening understand because it's like I don't want someone just kind of wondering like what you're talking about. Wells Fargo had some predatory lending, especially to communities of color. Just it's the fact of the matter. It goes to show that they were subprime mortgage lenders, and we all know. If you don't know, I suggest go watching The Big Short. But we don't have to get too deep into it. Again, like Rick said, it's unfortunate that took place, but it is on the record. It's a fact of the matter. But in addition to what you also mentioned, Rick, with the interest rates and the Fed raising rates in order to slow job growth, that is what you call quantitative tightening. And here, I'll share my screen one more time. I want to walk people through this. Essentially, with inflation going crazy as it is right now, this is an article that was released in the Times or in the Time magazine, and why it could be harder to find a job and get a pay raise if the Fed continues to do what it's doing by raising interest rates. Basically, what takes place is, I'll read this to you all real quick. So the Fed's longstanding belief is that a job market with strong hiring and increased wages typically fuels higher inflation. So we all have seen how gas prices have been going through the roof, especially last summer. Also, we all see how much eggs have increased in price at the grocery store, amongst many other things. I think used cars especially, have been ridiculously increased, inflated. A bunch of different things that, hit our pockets. The Fed is basically trying to get inflation under control. It's happening all over the world. It's not as bad here as it is other places, but I mean, we live here in America and we still feel it. So under this economic model, consumers are more likely to spend freely when they have higher incomes, and companies tend to raise their prices to help cover climbing labor costs. It might seem odd to regard wage increases as a problem, but the Fed's approach highlights the harsh trade-offs at the heart of the battle against inflation. To keep prices stable, it needs to be harder for workers to find a job and get a pay raise, according to the Fed. Now that sounds dark, but that's just how it is. Like that's how our Federal Reserve, that is in charge of our money supply and, the interest rates that, affect everything from the loans that we take out for buying houses or cars or whatever it may be, credit card loans. This is how they see the economy. And unfortunately, the working class always gets hit the hardest. And that's where, these companies have to start going through layoffs in order to make ends meet when money is more expensive to get a hold of. I'll read this last part before I throw it back over to you guys. But the central bank has been aggressively increasing interest rates to slow the economy and bring inflation back to around its 2% target. Last Wednesday, the Fed raised its benchmark interest rate for an eighth time since March of 2022. Although at a slower pace, it indicated that further increases were probable. Fed Chair Jerome Powell, you guys should check out his background. There's a little bit of echo. Sorry about that. But Fed Chair Powell has suggested that hard times are coming, particularly for workers, and quote unquote said, "I wish there was a completely painless way to restore price stability," Powell said at a news conference on December 14th, right before a bunch of layoffs in January and around the holiday season. But simply put, there isn't. So really, really good point that you brought up, Rick. When, like I said, the economy has all these ebbs and flows, it's going to hit you one way or the other. So it's really important to brace yourself and be prepared and really think about those large purchases that you make. Think about those, loans that you take out, and just constantly keep yourself sharp, because the best time to look for a job is when you have a job. So, I mean, my employer might listen to this. I love my job. To be honest, I haven't interviewed lately. I've interviewed internally just to keep myself in demand there. But when times start to get crazy and just you can kind of pay attention to what's going on and get a feel for, is there possibly a round of layoffs coming? You might want to just network. You don't always have to interview with companies, but meet up with those coworkers that you haven't seen, those old coworkers that you haven't seen in a while, and just check with them, see how things are going. That's a form of just like, interviewing them, seeing how their job's going. And, just in case something happens at yours, maybe you can make a pivot to theirs. What are you guys thinking?
So, yeah, so what comes to mind, like with all that, and thank you for all that great information you shared, man. It's just so insightful for, like a common person, like, and as well for you, but hearing about, like, me personally, when I hear about the interest rates or anything, I pay no attention. I will, for the most part, I used to never pay any attention to it. But basically what you guys are saying, those are the signs, those are the red flags for a major shift in the economy is coming. So when I think of interest rate, I'm like, oh, that just doesn't, what does that have to do with me? Man, it could come and affect you in so many, like you said, so many ways. So with that being said, like I'll just go back to what I originally said, preparation. When I hear that, I would immediately think of, like you, and also to chime on what you said, you want to keep your ear to opportunities out there. You don't have to be necessarily looking or interviewing other companies, but being mindful of what your market looks like, what's going on, how it's being affected, what opportunities are out there. And another thing that is big for me that I just recently started doing that I should have probably been doing is resume updates monthly. Like, you don't want to wait to update your resume and try to revert back on what you've done, what new things have you learned. It's so many things that you probably do new skill set wise, but daily with your company, that you should be adding to the you have. Because when you wait until you no longer are employed, and then you feel like, oh, I need to update this, and I think I have some new things to offer to another company, you need to be updating that pretty much monthly. Like, that's like constant, like always. You anything you've done that doesn't fall under the norm of your basic job requirement or skills, or you helped on a project or whatever that you've done something manager, like something like a manager type role, put that down, jot that down. Don't wait till the moment where you need things updated. It's like just staying proactive, staying efficient, staying up to date. I think if you do that when the unknown does occur, because we all are capable of this or can going through this. The unknown can affect each and every one of us at any point. You shared earlier before we hopped on the call, we brainstorm and talk to each other about these cuts can happen from the top spectrum to the lower spectrum. There is no before where it was just all the lower job roles. Let's just cut all those off. We don't. They're pulling engineers. They're cutting everyone from top anywhere. Basically, anyone could get it.
Anybody can get
it's
it.
very very random. So when that happens, that's why I said like also I would always look up the ladder, see what the next step up is. So we know you can stay and well, if you get cut at the current job role that you're at, they basically saying that we don't need this current role. So I would always look up the ladder. What's the next 3 steps up from where I am? What have I done that correlates to their position and their job duties, their, job description? And if I am one of the unfortunate ones who gets cut, I don't want to return back as the same role in person. Clearly, that just lets me know my job role is not 100% safe. So with that being said, how do I put myself and prepare for a safer role, a safer job? Yes, it's random. Anyone can get it, but I know for a fact I'm not going back in as the same person that I was prior to. I don't want the same job. You can cut when they feel like cutting, they can cut me too. So I think just overall, I think there's no solid proof answer to avoid this, but bettering yourself, like you said, the growth, like you shared, watching the signs, reading the weather and the landscape, analyzing it, just how do you make yourself just better, all in all.
Yeah, no, I think so many good points you made there. One that really, really jumped out to me is, like you said, constantly be updating your resume. It's like it's tax season for the adults out there. The youth may not know about this, although they should. I think kids should be learning more about taxes and trigonometry. And yeah, anyway, when you go through tax season, you have to kind of audit all the money that you've earned and all of your spending if you run a business, so many different things that you need to take into consideration when you're auditing yourself. But same goes for your skill set. I think it's so important to really be up to speed on, like Bryce mentioned, what does the next step in my career look like? Like, what are the requirements of that position? What do I need to sharpen up on in order to position myself well to, jump into the next level? That is so vital, because you'll oftentimes find that I have some work to do. Like when you really look at that next step that you're interested in, you'll realize maybe I need to put some time in extra after work when I'm at home, typically watching Netflix or, scrolling through social media. You'll find that, okay, maybe I need to put a little bit more time towards like my goals in order to position myself to increase my pay, like really. And yeah, and in addition to that, it's just like, once you have your mind wrapped around what that next level looks like, it's important for you to communicate with your management team, your leadership team, like, hey, I've been checking out that role that, it may not even be open right now, but more than likely, if the company's continuing to grow, it'll come open. The opportunity will present itself, and it's better to be ready so you don't have to get ready. And when you put it out there for your manager, I just went through this experience at work. I put it out there with my manager, like, hey, I'm interested in this. Like, what does that look like? What do I need to do to position myself well? And my manager she's awesome. She really did just an amazing job of guiding me through what that process looks like. And I was sure enough able to position myself well and receive the promotion. And yeah, not only that for like just promotion wise, but 20 years from now, 60 to 70% of the jobs that are in our economy have not been created yet. So, I mean, of course, we're seeing so many technological advancements taking place with like Chat GPT, artificial intelligence, automation, and like autonomous vehicles. There's so many things coming out all at once. Not even to mention everything going on with crypto technology and Web3. But when you just look at just the past, I'd say past 2 years alone, there's so many new positions that have been created from all of these changes. I mean, just imagine that tenfold 20 years from now. It's going to look so different. So if you aren't constantly assessing yourself, you just assume that you're going to fall in that 30 to 40% category. Like it's not even like the odds aren't even on your side for you to assume that your position, what you're doing for work right now is going to be around 20 to 30 years from now. You'd be very naive, I'd say, putting it lightly, to not be on the lookout for what else can you add to, like Bryce said, to your tool belt, so you can keep building up your empire, your family legacy, whatever it may be. Don't be naive. This world does not treat the naive very well, I'll say.
Absolutely, man. Just like you said, man, everything you explained, the words that stick out to me, man, is just stay hungry, take the initiative all before the disaster. If you do that before an unfortunate event comes, you'll just be better prepared to have that short stint. I know nothing's in our control and at our leisure, but it's the likeliness, if you use the tools and stay prepared, stay mindful of these things that we're sharing, do the research, man, I think it'll be a transition. And then, like you said, I think is the biggest factor, catch your mom. Mom's been trying to share this and teach us this for a long time. I'm still trying to adapt and learning, but save your money, catch your money. That's what my mother Paulette always shares with us. Catch majority of your income and money. If you can't save it all, please just have some of it. You don't want to just put it back into that's a whole nother topic, but have something to land on, because you don't know what can happen. Oh, and you were talking about the loans. Yeah, don't just because you're making all this, making good income and everything, you can manage. Once that income is pooled, how do you manage? So that would be the thing.
Yep. No, that's super valid. But yeah, unless Rick, you wanted to add anything else, I do want to throw out the fact that we have set our date for our next gathering, our next event taking place on the 18th of this month in March. So really excited to again catch up with the the youth, the young adults, and the grown adults out here trying to figure out ways to come together and continue to grow our community. Primarily speaking, we are just really trying to reach those who are trying to find out like what are some ways to make more happen with the same amount of time, the same 24 hours in a day. We're trying to do more. We're trying to be more effective. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm excited for it. I know Bryce, I think you have some prior work engagements. So Bryce is going to be on the grind because he is in demand. But yeah, we'll definitely hold it down for you and touch on some topics that you'll share with us beforehand. And for sure, we'll make sure that we have Bryce there at the next event. So what do you guys thinking? Anything else you want to add to this topic that we covered today? I think we really went through some solid things. I can like do a real quick recap of some points that really stood out to me. What Bryce mentioned on just keeping yourself up to date on the trending topics in your area of expertise, skills wise, like keep your resume refreshed, understand what that next step looks like. Rick really brought up some solid points around just like you can see the stuff coming when you're watching the interest rates and how the Fed is moving, the Federal Reserve, the economy will kind of give you a hint at where things are headed when interest rates start to go up or down. Quantitative easing, when it's interest rates are going down, they want people to do more spending, and quantitative tightening when inflation's going up and they need to slow down the growth of jobs and wages because then the prices of everything continue to go up. So that's like a Jedi master perspective on the working class economy. But last but not least, just like network and come to events like we're having on the 18th of March, because your network is your net worth at the end of the day. You are the average of the 5 people that you spend your most time with. And, of course, work puts us in a good position. But if your company goes to a round of layoffs, then more than likely your coworkers aren't going to be able to help you much. They might be able to introduce you to somebody who they know, but it's more important for you to know someone who's at another company or organization or has a company or organization of their own that are looking to hire someone with your skill set.
So 2 things lastly that I just want to interject quickly that I forgot to share was one of them being look outside the box. I think a lot of us, we don't really understand how much our actual skill set correlate or translate us into a whole nother field. It may be base entry, but it could be the beginning base entry of a more secure, a more safe type environment and journey. So really dissect, look at your skill set and what you have to offer, your knowledge. It can be just computer literacy. It can be very simple, just general. But some companies, some venues, some environments are looking for just that. So you don't have to be experts in your field to be able to transition, and because to whatever it can be used somewhere along the line. If it's affected you and where you're currently at, think outside the box. Look and see if you can make a pivot or a transition into a different avenue and lane. And second, I always wondered, like for my company, I get these emails from these most random companies and technology. Like, I'm like, how did they find me? When I got hired, I didn't sign up for any of these trials. How do I get these external emails? But you'd be surprised what crossed your path. Like, very interesting webinar. Use webinars. I've jumped on like these random webinars. I can tell the difference between spam and an actual technology or software company. And just have that interest. Just be intuitive. Be interested in just learning something new. So webinars are very resourceful. It can tell you if this is something that you are interested in and that you're willing to learn, or this is not your cup of tea. So that was just quickly it for me. Just have a little interest in something.
Yeah, that's so solid. Those transferable skills, like we mentioned on our last episode, like you might not be able to stay in the position that you're in, especially like we said, 60 to 70% of the jobs in 20 years have not been created yet, but those transferable skills have. So communication, organization, detail oriented, just being people, that's why exactly you read my mind. Just being likable, like be someone who people want to be around, like bring the energy. That's so vital. Like it's so important. You spend a third of your life around your colleagues and your coworkers at work. So be someone who people want to be around. Like that's so vital. So you guys are dropping gems today.
About you, man.
And then I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up with a couple of gems just through our quality conversation that I was able to take notes on. So just a big impact that you brought up about the resume. An even bigger gem is if your employer asks you for your most recent resume, that's an essential function right there. Just being mindful if they're asking you for your most recent update or your resume or what have you. Because I've been in that position with a couple companies and they ask for your most recent resume. And just put your best self forward. There's some people where they don't even have the mindset of update. Like, yeah, I work here right now, but I'm not going to update my resume with the fact that I'm working here right now because I'm already working here. So I'm working here. So I'm gonna give you all my resume information up until my point right here. And it's like no, like the business and all is trying to see how devoted you are to this job and committed to us. And if you're to the point to where you're clueless or you're not able to put that you currently work here right now, why do I still need you to work here? Like that's a real big indicator, along with you just doing it yourself bi-weekly, monthly, doing that routine check. And another thing is just when you're in that position, kind of envision yourself going to that next level. And something I was able to do throughout my career is I saw myself as a teller. I wanted to be a banker. As a banker, I wanted to be the assistant manager. Assistant manager, I wanted to be a manager. So I would go to those positions and ask them, what is it that you're doing day to day to be able to help you be successful? So now as I'm doing that, I'm able to do my current role, but I'm doing my current role like I'm trying to be that right there. So then that way you're able to articulate your way as if you want to be there because you're already positioning yourself mentally like you are there. So your conversation is on a whole different level because you're not here just to be here. You're here with a goal. You're trying to achieve something. And then that way, as you have those conversations with people know where you're trying to go. Mm-hmm. Then also those that are watching you know, like, oh yeah, like he should be a PV. Like, why is he in that role? Or he should be an assistant manager. He's doing all the stuff that an assistant manager would do. So then you get that recognition and you have that conversation to back up what you're trying to go to and what you're trying to do. And another thing I really say, I think this is the gem about interest rates. When you look at interest rates, I had an OG tell me this. He said, interest rate is nothing but the price of exchanging money. We have this imaginary vision of what an interest rate is, but an interest rate of money is nothing more than just paper currency. An interest rate is just a number attached to the movement of that money. So as they raise the number on what that interest rate is, it mentally to us, it gives us the perception like, oh yeah, it's so high. But really it's just the cost of money. It's just a game that it really is with money. It's just the cost to play.
Yeah.
It's what it costs you 10% to be able to do this. And that's the cost of what it is to play. It's like it's lower. When it's lower, like money's gonna move faster. But when it's higher, it's gonna slow it down because everyone has this perception of, oh, it's 10% right now. It was like, but if you have the foundation to go ahead and just pay it off because you can afford it, it's really not that high. But if you can't afford it, then that interest rate really has an impact. Yeah. And the last one I dropped is the Federal Reserve. I know I dropped a lot, but the Federal Reserve Bank. The biggest thing that I learned out of that is the Federal Reserve Bank isn't even a federal agency. It says Federal Reserve Bank, but they're not a part of the federal government. And I was like, wow, that's the biggest
Don't have them come get you, man. Hey, look.
But it's just, I mean, if you can go search it, the Federal Reserve Bank is not a federal institution. And I was like, so who's really in control? But now I don't want to be on their algorithm. So let me stop right there.
Going deep
Those are
here.
good gems, man. The resume, big. It dates you. The resume dates you. If you out of date, how can you be up to date? You know, so that's 100, big, man.
100%. Yep, I was just gonna share this. It's a free resume like scoring algorithm. It basically tells you because, like I mentioned, these applicant tracking systems are used by the companies that you're applying for, and they are completely ran by robots. It's no human being looking at your resume in the beginning until you reach a hiring manager, because the recruiter's not even really looking at your resume. They may, if they're really thorough about their job, but if they're interviewing 100 people a week, they're not looking at your resume. I'll just keep it real with you. If you are applying for a company that, you know, only hires maybe 3 people a quarter, then you can count on your resume being looked at. But otherwise, you're going through an algorithm, and it's important for you to know how well your resume is positioned to make it through the algorithm to actually be flagged to a recruiter and a hiring manager to speak to you. This website, resumeworded.com, is free from what I can tell. It says free. I haven't used it, to be honest, but I'll just go back to my search. I just did free AI resume checker. There's a bunch of companies. I have used JobScan before. It's free at first, but then I think eventually they only give you so much feedback before you need to pay. There's a bunch of companies out here, especially with artificial intelligence becoming more and more accessible. You're working against yourself when you aren't using this sort of technology to your advantage. So really, really vital for, you know, again, even some of the youth, some of the, you know, the young high schoolers who are trying to get jobs for the summertime. Like, position yourself well. Not only should you be using a software like this before you apply to whatever it may be. It could be Chick-fil-A, it could be humble beginnings, it could be, doing a side hustle. Not only is it important for you to use this sort of software, but you should also personally reach out to the hiring manager if you can. If you could figure out who that person is, you should separate yourself from the rest, send them over an email, give them a call if you can, just something. Reach out and let them know you're there. Just let them know you are a human being. Give them like a quick 2 paragraph, no more than like 500 words. I would say even no more than 250 words of just like, I'm thinking characters. That's why. Maybe no more than 500 characters for the tweeters out there, of just like who you are, why you are interested in the job, and what you bring to the table. I promise you, your chances will go up exponentially. So, it's been a longer episode, but
those algorithms, like you said. No, I was gonna say those algorithms. Another thing I would research is getting those keyword. Those algorithms are looking for keywords. They're looking for specific terminology that's related to whatever the hiring position is. Figure out those words. Get those words and those that the algorithm wants to pick up on your resume. That's what gets you to that next level. They're not looking and reading your resume to see if you're a good fit. They're looking for those keywords. And once those keywords hit, then that's when the actual human being takes over and looks at what the algorithm has compiled as the suggestion of top picks. So it's something of those algorithms. Those are the ones that are really,
they run the world now.
Dissecting it.
They run the world. I mean, same thing goes for kids who are applying to college too. Just dawned on me. Like, you're not submitting your resume, but if you are, sending in your background, you have to do a letter of, your intent and just like your interests. This sort of stuff falls into the category as well. Like, do something to stand out. Like, this goes across the table. Like, internship, same thing. You'll more than likely have to apply for an internship. Be prepared to stand out. That's all we're saying. Anything else you guys got? I think this was deep, and always good catching up with you fellas.
I'll just throw in for the last bit. Complacency is the killer of dreams. So don't get complacent.
Say that again, man.
Absolutely.
That's so deep. Real. That's so real.
Complacency is the killer of dreams. Those dreams, as long as you get complacent, procrastinate, it's not going to happen, brother. Our sister.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Facts. Leave it at that. Again,
topic, man.
Yeah. Again, March 18th. Unfortunately, our brother Bryce won't be in attendance, but he will be spiritually. We're going to hold it down for him. And we look forward to seeing those of you who will be joining us. We'll make sure, if you have anything that you would like us to cover, reach out to me. Last time, you guys shared some really good topics, so we appreciate that. And we'll keep it going. We will see you all soon. Enjoy this weekend, and stay safe out there.
Always. Much love.
Yep. Love you, fellas. I'll see you guys later.
All right, brothers.
All right. Take care.
Peace.